Hello and welcome to Now is the Time. I'm Meri Crouley. You know, on today's program, we're going to be talking and discussing a subject called sex trafficking. And sex trafficking is a horrible problem in our society. In fact, it's the fast and growing criminal activity in the world, even surpassing drug trafficking. On today's program, we need to take action, and we are going to bring a woman on named Opal Singleton, who is the CEO and president of Million Kids, and she's literally herself trained over 100,000 people of the dangers of sex trafficking and what you can do to combat this horrible problem, because it's just not overseas. It's also here, right here in the United States of America. Welcome to the program, Opal.
Thank you so much, Meri. I appreciate it.
You know, you've been doing this now for, how long have you been working on this subject?
Since 2008.
How did you get involved in this, Opal?
Well, it's a fascinating story. I'm retired, and I was an artist in my retirement, and I began to go to a church. They had a mission in Cambodia. Most people send money and sit in the pew, but I have a background in international marketing. So I began to sell my artwork and began to go to Cambodia. And I have been there many, many times now. I am on the board of directors for Rapha House, R-A-P-H-A. It means healing. And I actually lived in Cambodia for 4 months in 2012 and was their acting country director there for the largest safe house in Cambodia that rescues kids from slavery.
So now, this is overseas. I just got back from Thailand, where, you know, we're seeing it's a #1 sex tourist destination in the world. But this problem is just not overseas. It's actually right here in the United States.
It was a fascinating thing. I really didn't want to get involved in trafficking here in the U.S. I wasn't sure I believed it. First of all, I hate melodrama. I'm the most down-to-earth person you ever met. But God had a different plan for me, and one night he introduced me to a sheriff deputy in Riverside County, outside of Los Angeles, where I live. And that deputy had gotten a grant, had received a grant from Sacramento to start a human trafficking task force in Riverside County. He had no money. It was just enough for him. Most people would have stopped there. But he met me and he said, would you be my training and outreach coordinator for the task force? And I said I would. And so that began the journey of a lifetime. I sat at my kitchen table. I still work for my kitchen table to keep the costs down, the overhead down, and for fundraising. And I am an avid researcher since 2010. I have looked at every human trafficking case in America and every child pornography case, and I analyze it so that I can train law enforcement and first responders.
Now, this problem, you know, and I've talked to a lot of people, and they just don't realize how fast it's growing. In fact, you know, they used to have, you know, the drug trafficking and gun running was big, but now a lot of the gangs have seen that they can make more money by trafficking a girl. The average girl, I've heard they make $250,000 a year per girl.
Even more, yes.
So if you have 4 girls, you know, that you're trafficking, that's $1 million a year.
You bet.
And if they get caught, it's not like if they have drugs, they go to jail. But if they have a girl, they can just say, oh, we're just partying, you know. That's, So explain what's happening in the United States with the social media.
Okay. In the United States, it's mainly gangs and social media, and sometimes victims of child pornography. I'll talk about that later. But in our county, out here in Southern California, about 80 to 90% of the cases are gang-related. And they use their gang girls. This is the scary part of this, is 60% of our cases, there is another girl doing the recruiting. Everybody's thinking it's going to be somebody like Snoop Dogg, okay? It isn't. What is happening is gangs, in the old days, they would never think of being involved in violating a minor. In fact, there is a big price to pay in prison if you were engaged in sex with a minor. But these days, they literally recruit young girls, especially here in California, which is why we're the #1 state. And these are gang girls that are then in charge of recruiting other girls in our schools, in the malls, a variety of places. And you will see that what will happen is these become large-scale gangs. And like you said, it is all about the money. Many of our cases, and we just had a case out of Moreno Valley where he had 28 girls. and they were branded with a tattoo. His moniker was classified, his gang moniker, and they branded the girls with a tattoo right down the side of their face. They were sold all over America. So you may see a case in your town, but it's really related to a large-scale gang. And they are bringing in huge money. The Dog Pound gang up in Fresno, that particular gang, they had tens of millions of dollars. When they arrested these guys, they were preying on girls 13, 14, and 15, just sick and sad. Kids who never once thought they'd be a victim of trafficking. But when they arrested them, besides the tens of millions of dollars, they impounded a Range Rover, a boat, and something else that was worth over $100,000. It's all about the money, and a lot of these gangs are now working with drug cartels. It's very organized.
And so people that are watching the program, you know, you might have a daughter that's going to school that's 12, 13, 14 years old.
That's right.
And you say now that there's these girls that are actually being used by the gang to try to now get these girls. What do they do? Give a scenario of what a normal scenario of how this would work.
Okay, the first thing I would say to your audience is talk to your girls about don't date a gang guy. I mean, this is rough because she thinks she's got a boyfriend. And okay, he's a gang member, but she's kind of impressed with his prestige and his power. And she's thinking this is going to be mutually exclusive. It is not going to be that way. And we need to stop right now and talk. I talk turkey to our kids. I go into schools all the time and talk with them. His job is to deliver her to a gang, and they literally will hold her down and do what they call a train on her while he watches, while everyone watches. He walks away, she belongs to a gang. So what do you do as a parent? What do you look for? There are two kinds of grooming. In fact, I wrote a book about this. We'll talk about that later, called Seduce: The Grooming of America's Teenagers. And in that grooming, it can be an older boyfriend. She's usually maybe 12, 13, 14. He's 20, 22, 25. By the way, that's why I'm against a dating site like Tinder, because the ages on Tinder are 13 to 25. So she can meet older boyfriends. So she meets a guy, she falls in love. She gets this fantasy relationship. It is truly grooming. Not one of these kids understood what's about to happen. He will tell her everything she wants to hear. And by the way, mom and dad become the bad guy. And especially if there's a divorce or a single parent household, it's, you know, I'm sorry dad wasn't there for you last night. You know, he doesn't know what he's missing.
Well, and they also know, from what I've been researching, in fact, your book, Seduced, that I've been reading, is just, you need to get this book. It is very educational, and it really opens your eyes to what is going on. But it's saying that these gang people, these gang members, will be looking for certain types of signals from the girl.
That's correct. Actually, there's what we call a predator or a pedophile's hierarchy. And it isn't what you think. It starts with availability, that's number one, and vulnerability is number two. After that is attractiveness, and then risk. You don't have to be pretty to be recruited, okay? They will take a 500-pound purple elephant and sell it anywhere they can. But availability and vulnerability is the key. So that makes, for instance, foster kids particularly in danger of this. About 60% of our victims of commercial sexual exploitation were foster kids, homeless kids, pregnant kids. I mean, a pregnant child, a pregnant girl who's 15, one of the most vulnerable persons on earth. He will get her pregnant for the purpose of controlling her the rest of his life. And think about the bond when your pimp is your baby's daddy. And the other one is runaway kids. And parents, talk to your kids. Don't run away. Give them a safe place and get a code word between you that you will recognize if they're emailing you or something. Code word like star or heart or fish or something. So if they try to reach back to you, you can recognize. But it's really availability and vulnerability. So it isn't whether you're poor or rich, or if you're black or Hispanic or Asian or Caucasian. It's, do you have time on the internet? Are you sending naked photos? Are you willing to reach out to total strangers? Are you in need of love? If you're from a broken home where you're reaching out, and wanting to fill that hole in your heart, all of those are things that make you available and vulnerable.
Well, as I was driving over here for this interview today, I actually heard on the news that there was a 12-year-old girl walking to school. There was a man in a white van that was trying to get her to get in his car, and she ran, and then she saw him 4 blocks later, and she ended up telling, of course, her mom, and was able to get away from this perpetrator. But, this is not just the guy out there, looking for people in the vans or in the cars.
Right.
You're dealing with people that are being groomed. I've heard the stories about an older gal at school that's looking for younger girls and seducing them into meeting this one girl was an African-American gal, older classmate, senior, she was maybe a sophomore. Befriended her, brought her over to meet a man, an older man, like maybe in his 20s or 30s. They hooked up, and eventually she was sleeping with 20 to 30 people a day.
Yes, that's a term for that is bottom girl. There's a street term I won't use on the air for that. But that is why 60% of the victims are recruited by another girl. They will take these girls. These are girls who started in the life of commercial sex, and maybe they started at 12, 13, 14, and then when they hit about 16, 17, they'll make them a bottom girl. Now, a bottom girl can also be 24. I've seen them up to 44. And these are people they promote. The guys who are the pimps or the predators will promote the girl. She manages the other girls. She may manage the money. She places the ads on the internet, and she also recruits other girls. That's really, really scary for a parent, because I really want to address this with your parents. I'll give you an example of a case so a parent can really recognize this. It was a grandmother. Their granddaughter was in the delinquent program, and I'm training the parents that day at the police station for the delinquent juvenile program. Grandma all of a sudden it was like hit her like a ton of bricks. And she said, oh my gosh, Monday night, my granddaughter came home, and she had a whole new set of nails, and her hair was all cute and done up. She said, we're poor people. I could never buy that for her. On Wednesday, they caught her with a roll of money, but this is Saturday morning, I'm doing the training. And she said, tonight they're taking my granddaughter to Universal Studios. Why would somebody spend $80 on my granddaughter? And I told her, I said, don't let her go. Go home and get some clothes, your husband, you, somebody, and you take her out of town and for the weekend, get away. And then on Monday, I want you back at the school talking to the school counselor, find out who the girl is that's taking her here and what gang does she belong to. If she had gone to Universal Studios that night, you never would have seen her again. When you have bottom girl recruiting, it goes very quick, very fast. Because if that girl doesn't produce, she's got to go earn it herself. And so you have when you have a boyfriend recruiting a girlfriend, it'll go on for weeks, maybe months. And in that case, she falls in love, and he gives her everything she wants, and then he brings her down. He begins to hit her, puts her out in prostitution. She's in love with him. She thinks she's in business with him. He'll say, just help me out. I just need you to do it with a friend. Help me pay the rent. I'm about to get a job. And she sees herself in business, and she'll defend him. But the bottom girl, that usually goes in under 5 to 10 days because she has a quota, and it can be as simple as befriending her and then taking them out and selling them into a gang. Or sometimes they will take them to a party, get them drunk, have sex, film it, and they are living at home, and they're being blackmailed, and they're being forced into prostitution while living at home. While I'm saying that, let me add one more thing for your parents. 2 or 3 primary signs that somebody might be being trafficked. Number 1, they're very sleep deprived because they make these kids work 20 hours a day. Number 2, they're very hungry, okay, because they withhold food. You go a couple of days without food, you'll do anything. And the 3rd sign is that they often have a burner phone, like a throwaway phone, a prepaid phone. And if you see those, and especially if you ever see daddy or wifey on that phone, you have a child that's in big trouble and you need help immediately. So.
Well, people watching right now, this is a very serious, serious situation that's going on in our country. They say it's a $32 billion industry worldwide, sex trafficking. And, Opal Singleton has worked training and teaching 100,000 people around the world about this horrific crime. It could happen to anybody's child. It could happen to yours. Let me ask you this, Opal. These people that are the girls, the guys that are on the internet, girls are wanting to find a guy more and more. How prevalent is it that girls are sexting pictures, texting pictures of themselves?
It is just an absolute epidemic, and I live and breathe that world. I study technology. I'm an instructor at USC and also for the LA Fire Training Academy, and I served on the panel that wrote the curriculum for all of law enforcement for human trafficking for the state of California. This situation with social media is just terrifying because what is about to happen here, you have the entire world about to be connected by internet. And we're taking our 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old girls and handing them a cell phone. Now, on the one hand, this is really exciting. This is the first generation in all of history that is able to reach the entire world. But the entire world can reach them. That allows total strangers. They believe there are at least 3 to 5 million predators online at any given time, and they can access, groom, recruit, and exploit our young people. If they're in a video game chat room, they can talk to your children about morality, spirituality, sexuality, literally the things that were the holy grail for a parent. Now, you ask how prevalent, for instance, naked selfies are. There is a technology called photo DNA, and every email that goes out around the world is scanned for the image of a naked and violated child. They're looking for child pornographers, and they found 158 million images so far doing that. This is the FBI and Microsoft. However, 1/4 of those images are naked and violated selfies, or naked selfies, that our girls and our guys are sending to each other. And so that's why I talk into schools, and that's why parents need to sit and say, who owns the internet? Nobody. Is it private? No, it's not private. Then why would you send a naked photo on it? It's an invitation to a predator. It's an invitation to being blackmailed.
Well, I was just hearing a story. It was actually on Dr. Phil about a gal that met somebody online and started going back and forth and things like that. And then eventually, after a couple months, it took time for them to meet. Well, a gal came to her door to pick her up and brought her to meet this guy. And all I can say, the next thing she knew that she was in a closet and literally being taken somewhere across state lines. This kind of thing happens too.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, the scenario where they come and just kidnap you off the street, I won't say it doesn't happen, but it is the least likely scenario. Almost always, they get the victim to kind of raise their hand and say, take me. And the victim does not understand where they're going. When we come back from our break, I'll give you a couple of cases that show how that happens. But the point is these kids don't have cognitive reasoning, a lot of them. They're 11, 12, 13 years old. They're hormonal, they're going through puberty, and we are giving them devices to reach the entire world, and they don't have the wherewithal to make in-depth decisions. On top of it, it's a fantasy world out there in that internet, and they are not able to connect real-life consequences to decisions made in a fantasy world.
Okay, so now parents have the dilemma. Okay, I want my child. I want to be able to connect with my child.
Right.
I want to be able to know that they're safe. What age should a parent give a cell phone, if at all? And if they give it to, what type of parameters can they put on that cell phone to protect their own child?
Well, the parameters are getting harder and harder. It used to be you could put filters, you could put monitoring devices and like that. But think about the last 90 days. We have encrypted messaging, encrypted chat room, disappearing video. We have live streaming. We have virtual reality. A parent will not be able to control them. So it is my belief that we have to have a program of being able to talk with the child and make them a leader, or they don't get the phone. Now, you ask what age. It depends on the maturity of the child. But I would never put a child on a phone that's going through puberty and that has not had cognitive reasoning. When they do get the phone, I approach it from this standpoint. It's my phone. I'm loaning it to you because I believe in you. The 4 most important words, I believe in you. I want you to be a leader. This is the most important generation that's ever lived. You have more power to reach the entire universe than any child that's ever walked the face of the earth. And I believe you're going to be a leader. But in the meantime, I'm going to learn it with you. That means I'm going to check your phone, and I'm expecting you to teach me all these new apps too. And that includes online gaming, by the way. If they're under 15, I would not give a child an online game with a video chat room unless you're willing to get an avatar and play it with them.
Well, you know, this disappearing video, what is that?
Well, Instagram and almost a Messenger, all of them now are going into, the word is called ephemeral, depending on how you pronounce it. It means disappearing, okay? And that is a real challenge for law enforcement. I haven't mentioned this, but I do work with the Riverside County Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force. I train a lot of law enforcement, and I work with the Riverside County Sheriff, and I also am funded through the Department of Justice. This is changing our society. Think about, you know, when a girl has disappearing video, how are you going to parent? But how is law enforcement going to be able to make a case on behalf of your girl if there's no evidence? And we're giving all of our kids Bitcoins, like in these video games, they have a Bitcoin account. You know, the number 2 thing you need in making a case is follow the money. But Bitcoins are anonymous and they're non-traceable. So if law enforcement can't do it and a parent can't do it, we need to then take a step back and say, my child needs to have responsibility and respect for social media before we put them in there. This is not a game. You know, this has all happened to us in the last 10 years, and parents are overwhelmed. Technology is not good or bad, but technology demands respect, and it demands responsibility. I think of our kitchen stove. It's a great thing if you cook and make a family meal. But if you stick your hand in that flame, you're going to get burned. And where I come in is I work with families whose kids have been burned, you know, that have been hurt in ways that can't be repaired. You know, their lives and the lives of their families are changed forever. And so it really is a complex subject, but it's one where parents need to get involved and get educated.
Well, I think that's really wise. And, you know, Opal, if people want to, for instance, you talked about the book Seduced. Mm-hmm. And you also talked about that you have a website, Million Kids. Why don't you tell the people how they can get involved or how they can buy this book and really learn more about what's going on with Million Kids?
I appreciate that very much, Mary. Thank you. Well, first of all, the book, you can get that by going to www.millionkids.org, MILLION, millionkids.org. And you'll go on. The book is $16. I'll sign it myself. It is sold on Amazon, and we sell a lot on Amazon. It's in its 5th printing. I'm amazed. It's a 5-star book on Amazon. But if you get it at www.millionkids.org, it helps us help parents and families that are being victimized by this. That's one thing. The other thing is go to exploitedcrimes.com. I have 2 websites. You can go to millionkids.org, and you'll see all about our organization. And you can also go to Facebook and find Million Kids and like us. You'll get a tremendous education. We have new cases every 2 to 3 hours on there, okay? So you'll really get an education. But if you're a first responder or somebody who really wants to become an expert on this, go to exploitedcrimes.com, exploitedcrimes.com, click on listen, and there are over 50 hours of free human trafficking training, and it goes out to the entire world. You can read them, you can download them, you can share them, and you can get an embed code to put it on your own website. So.
Wow, well, thank you for coming on the program. We're going to be doing another program that's going to be going into more of the social media aspects on the next program, which you're going to want to stay tuned for. But listen, thank you for watching Now Is the Time. Now is the time that we all need to make a difference. You know, people think, well, this is somebody else. This is happening over in Asia. This is happening to someone else's child. No, it could be happening to yours. You know, we're going to go into some stories in the next, taping. But let me tell you, now is the time, is the name of my program. Now is the time for you to take action. Become aware. Look around you for the signs. Look around you for the victims, because there's literally, they say, over 1 million people in the United States that are homegrown right here. It's probably even higher than that, that are sex trafficked right in our own country, right in our own borders. Will you make a difference? You can also go to my website. I'm doing a documentary called Freedom Cry, where I'm going to be producing a documentary, and I hope that Opal will be working with me, not only on narrative for it, but also in helping to formulate this so that we can get this around the world into film festivals, on Netflix, and other media outlets, that we can make a difference. Will you help contribute today by going to my website at mericrouley.com? You should see it on the screen, but it's mericrouley.com, and you can donate to this cause. For such a time as this, has God called us to the kingdom. We hope to see you soon. And remember, your voice makes a difference if you continue to stand up, rise up with the power that God has given you, for now is the time.